Okay, so in the next few lessons, we're going to cover the different common blocks that creatives encounter when starting their business. And we're going to separate these into different lessons so that you can pop back in according to what you need on a given day, because these will keep coming up, and that's not a bad thing, but we get better at managing them and they can get smaller and quieter over time. So in 10 years, you might still encounter bouts of fear, right? I mean, we're human beings, that's common. But having the skills to manage that fear when it arises can actually diminish it, make it smaller, and give you more confidence to move forward. So, to start this process, the first block we're going through is fear. So, fear is a huge block that creatives encounter when starting their business or when thinking about starting their business. It's really common for a lot of the creatives that I work with and talk to that they've had the dream of starting their creative business for years and years and years, but fear of failing, fear of being made fun of, fear of it not working out, fear of not making money, fear of the list goes on, and you probably have specific fears that you could list out too. Those fears stop them from taking any action. So I want you to take a moment now and just reflect on any fears that you have or have had in the process of wanting to start your creative business. And you might still be experiencing some as you listen to this module. Just take a moment to list out any fears. So those fears that you just listed out, these fears, they're trying to be helpful, right? They're trying to protect us. They're trying to keep us safe. And that's really beneficial because as humans, as we've evolved, that's a really innate, natural characteristic that we hold. Fear is meant to protect us. It's meant to keep us safe. It's meant to keep us alive. But in the times that we live in now, often fear can get confused between what's not safe and what's just beyond our comfort zone. And so much of our growth as humans, as creatives, as business owners happens just outside of our comfort zone, in that growth zone. So while fear is trying to be helpful, sometimes it's holding us back from taking action to bring our dreams to life, our visions to life, and the next steps in our creative business to life. So we're going to go through 2 exercises that can help with this so that you can move through the fear, manage it, and keep moving forward on your creative business journey. So the first exercise is going to help with a question that comes up a lot is, well, how do I know the difference between my fear and my intuition? Like if something is telling me in my body, which both fear and intuition manifests in our body, to not take action on this thing. So for example, to not start my creative business, if something is telling me not to do that in my body, how do I know if it's fear or intuition? So this exercise that I'll share can be really powerful to start to distinguish the two. And it's one that I originally heard on a podcast. I think Marie Forleo, who's another amazing creative business owner, I think she shared it, but it's a really great physical exercise to tune into your body and listen to what your body is telling you, because your body knows. Your body often knows before your mind does. So when you're faced with a decision, in this example, let's use starting your creative business. The question, should I start my creative business? When you're faced with a question like that and you're stuck in indecision and you've been kind of swirling in indecision and you're scared, but you can't tell if it's fear or intuition that's stopping you from taking action, a great way to check in on this is to call that question to your mind. So I want you to close your eyes and think about that question. Should I start my creative business? It's a yes or no question. Then I want you to imagine with your eyes closed, you saying yes to that question. So should I start my creative business? Yes. When you answer yes to that question, what is the immediate feeling physically in your body? Do you feel expanded, opened up? Do you feel like your shoulders are kind of pushing up and back a little bit to put your chest forward? Do you feel like your head is brought up higher? Do you feel lighter in your body? Or do you feel like you're contracted and there's pressure on your shoulders and you're kind of curling in on yourself and towards yourself? What just the immediate reaction, not overthinking it, not even taking time to think about it, just the immediate physical reaction. So if you felt expanded and light and open, then that is likely your intuitive answer for what to move forward on. So in this case, when you answered yes, if you felt expanded and light and open, then that is often where our intuition is trying to guide us. If you felt contracted and heavy and compressed, that's often a sign that it's not the path for us. So what I want to clarify here is that you know what's best for you. At the end of the day, you know what's best for you know what decision is best for you, and you intuitively know. This exercise can just help to distinguish all of the cloudiness and the overthinking that can come with big choices. And What I've noticed in following this practice and talking to other creatives and hearing from Marie Forleo about this practice is that expansive lightness feeling, that's our guide forward, that's our compass. When we feel contracted and compressed, that's steering us away, that's guiding us somewhere else. And I just want to clarify that even when you feel expanded and open and excited and light by an idea, by a question, by a decision, that doesn't mean that path is going to be easy. So intuition isn't always leading us to the easy path. Intuition is leading us to our highest expansion, our highest evolution, and the next best version of ourselves, and in this case, of our creative business, and what's really of the highest service to our lives and those around us. That path is often full of a lot of personal development, a lot of change, a lot of challenge, but also so much beauty and so much depth and so much fulfillment. And so when you follow that expanded feeling, I just want to preface by saying it's not always going to be easy, but that's typically where our intuition is leading us. And so you can just feel it in your body. Like it feels more aligned. It feels more in flow than the contracted, pressured answer. So that's one exercise when you're feeling fear, is just to check in with yourself to say, okay, I hear you, fear, and I thank you for being here, but then do that body exercise to see which decision feels that lightness, feels that expansion, and then pursue that. The other exercise that can be really useful is creating a fear plan. So with the fears that you wrote down specifically, take a look at them, and you can do this for each line item that you wrote down, but let's just start with one. So pick one fear, and then sit down with it on a blank sheet of paper and just write the answer to this question. If that fear came true, what's the worst that could happen? And just write the answer. Okay, and so let's just put yourself in that scenario. If you were in that scenario of the worst happening, which that may or may not happen, but if you were in that scenario, what would you do? And write that answer. Okay, and then the last question is, and how would you feel about doing that? How would you feel about taking that action if that scenario happened? And write that answer. Okay, so this is your fear plan. So you can do this for each fear that you wrote down. But let's say that your fear is that you're really scared to start your creative business because you fear that people are going to make fun of you for putting yourself out there. Okay, so yeah, that's probable. There might be people who do that. There might not, but there might be people who do that. So if that happened in this example, what would you do if that happened? So let's just say that the response to this is, well, if people made fun of me and it was people I cared about, then I would talk to them and I would share how much this means to me and that I would really appreciate their support. And if they can't support me, I need a boundary so that I can continue pursuing what I love without feeling unsupported by them. Okay. And then in this example, how would you feel about that? And the answer might be, well, I wouldn't feel great because it's uncomfortable to be made fun of. It's uncomfortable to feel judged, but I would feel proud of myself for setting a boundary and continuing to pursue what's on my heart. Okay, so when you have this written out, you can see that for the fears that you have, first of all, they may never happen. So they're trying to protect you. But one thing to consider is if that were to never happen, like if there was no chance that that fear would happen in reality, would you pursue this path? If your answer is yes, then having this fear plan can just help you see that even if that fear does happen, which again, it may not, but if it does, then you have a plan for how you would approach it. And even though the feelings might be uncomfortable with that plan, you would know how to navigate it, and you could recognize that those feelings are normal and valid, and you could keep moving through them. So those are a couple of ways to approach fear if that's coming up with starting your creative business. In the next lesson, we're going to go over the next common block, which is failure. I'll see you there.